Well, San Diego travel writer and photographer Noreen Kompanik is joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Tourism Excellence Show today to talk about travel writing, media trips, and to share tips for both the destination and writer. Over 415 of her published articles have appeared in over 38 different digital and print publications. She's landed over 7 cover stories. She's a regular contributor to several magazines and also publishes stories on her site what'sinyoursuitcase.com. I know. It's not about what's in
Well,
your
we've
wallet.
been asked that before.
Don't open the suitcase. You will find a bunch of wine. That's what's in our suitcase. And sometimes tequila. But go follow her on Facebook, follow her on Twitter and Instagram. Go to what'sinyoursuitcase.com. So welcome, Noreen. What is in your suitcase today?
Well, hello, ladies. Oh, my goodness gracious. Actually, I'm pretty good. I'm home right now. I'm not on travel, but you know what? You might be able to find a little bit of wine in mine as well because I do love wine like you guys.
Mm-hmm. See, do you find like you need to have you have to have, do you ever take nibbles with you and like comfort food so you know that if there's a delay on a plane or even driving somewhere, anything can happen. You could arrive in a destination. It's like, you know what, I'm done. This ended up being like 10 hours longer than I thought. I need something, and things may be closed. You never know. So do you ever carry those kind of things on with you?
I sure do. Peanuts, snack bars, those types of things, nutrition bars, because as you said, you never know. So it's nice to have it with you just in case.
I know, because it does happen.
Sure.
And the timing you say, oh, no, it's only 3 hours away, that's when you end up in trouble, when you think you know, right? That's exactly it. And it's interesting, your career, over 34 years as a registered nurse and legal nurse consultant, right? So you've been in the caring industry. You know how to read fine print. What was it that you said, okay, that's it. I'm into travel writing, and I'm hop skipping around the globe?
Well, I didn't do it overnight, and I tell people this. If you're thinking about doing this, don't quit your day job. I mean, as you said before, it's just one of those things.
Oh, boy.
Actually, it was something I didn't even realize I was going to do. I was thinking about what am I going to do for retirement? And I had a friend, and she's just such a crazy fun friend. I'm just telling you, we all have friends like this, right? And she called me up from Boston, and she said, you ought to be here. You ought to be here. I'm going to this travel writing workshop. And I'm like, what is that? And she said, no, I'm serious, Noreen. This has got your name all over it. You're a good writer. You know, I've worked with you before. You travel all over the world. Why don't you just do this? Well, I really kind of thought it was a hoax, and I really wasn't sure. I thought, well, don't magazines all pay their own writers? I mean, I didn't know. I was a nurse, right? And so she calls me a couple months later, and she said, the course is going to be in San Diego. You have no choice now. I'm coming down. I'm taking the train from Santa Monica, and we're going to do this together and making sure you go to this course. So the long story short, ladies, I really did it just to keep her quiet and just go, fine. Okay, I'm going to prove to you that this isn't really a true blue thing. And day one of the course, I knew. I called my husband, and I said, I'm going to do this.
Wow.
It didn't happen overnight, but I listened to these amazing editors speaking from top magazines and from like the Denver Post and from, it was the Ultimate Travel Writers Workshop is what it was, put on by Great Escape Publishing. And there were the editor that puts the program together is actually the executive editor from International Living Magazine, and there were other top editors and writers there, and I thought, if they can do it, why can't I? I mean, if these writers that I'm meeting here are able to do this. So I didn't do it overnight. Lisa and, Nancy, I did it. I kind of transitioned. In other words, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, whether I was going to blog, whether I was going to write. Well, that took care of itself because as soon as I started sending out articles or pitches, magazines picked them up, and I was getting paid. And so I was like, wait a minute. If I can get paid to write for other publications, why not? And so that's how it all started. And then slowly I cut my hours down at work, And I kept telling my boss, I'm telling you, I'm going to cut them down more. I'm going to cut them down more because I'm getting published more. And then eventually last year, I hung up my stethoscope for good and my nursing cap, and I said, I'm doing this full time because I'm just so busy and I'm actually making money doing this.
Well, that's amazing because the industry has totally changed over the years in regards to especially independent publications and things like that. And also the competition. It's weird how the industry has gone to, okay, we don't have money for this, we're cutting this. And the industry also didn't understand how to go into digital at the beginning, right? And then all of
Right.
a sudden people said, well, we're going to do our own, we're going to blog, we're going to do this. So then here comes the uprising of bloggers and independents, and so that built up a bunch. So how do you navigate that as, the competition in a way, and how do you navigate that part? Is it about, do you write specific types of articles? I mean, I've been following you for a while on Twitter, actually. I've been like, there's Noreen, she's got wine up there today, like, and you do a lot on San Diego too. I'm always like, yay, because we live there. But how do you rise above that, the sea of travel writers and bloggers?
Well, there is one way. Well, first of all, one of the big ways to do it is to always be doing your research. Go out there, look and see who is out there paying writers. I don't write for free, and so I am always looking for publications that pay writers. The other thing about it is that, honestly and truly, I mean, I love to write. It's what I love to do more than anything else in the whole entire world. And I have this adage that if you're really super good at what you do, it's kind of like the movie, what was the movie called? Field of Dreams. Remember Field of Dreams, build it and they will come? And I kind of liken it to that because what ends up happening is that if you can really pen a super good story, make it easier for your editors to work with you. So typically it starts out, I write one article, the editor loves it, they then contact me and say, okay, we want you to write for us. And so I think establishing that pattern of excellence and loving what you do, letting it come across in your story, and then doing it well makes a huge difference. Plus, the other part of it is, and you had mentioned this, Lisa, because you said you've been following me, but I write for different genres because I think that destinations are kind of like people. We're multifaceted. And so are destinations. I mean, when you talk about San Diego, you think about the history, think about the culture, the food, the beaches.
It's huge.
Numerous things that you can do here. There's the world famous San Diego Zoo. So all of these type things, Balboa Park, all of these are potential stories. So I think that this is for me, and what I tell people is if you want to have a niche or niche, whatever you call it, it's up to you. But if you can stay sort of, if you can cover multiple genres, you increase your chances of being published.
That's interesting you say it because we're the blend, right? And we started our magazine in San Diego over 22 years ago as a print publication before blogs and everything. And, we did our market research. We printed even coloring books beforehand just to have people look and see what we're doing to learn the region because we were new in the area. Lived in Mexico, down south by Ensenada. We did a lot. And, it was so funny how many people told us, well, we don't need any more magazines. And Nancy, as soon as people told us not to do it, what did we do?
We did it.
We're doing it. And we're doing it as a blend because how do you limit yourself? Like, and even now, go on Facebook and anybody that's into the blogging and all, funnel this, your niche market. And I'm like, okay, way to close yourself off, boys and girls. Yes, have a niche, but, there's multiple sides of it. We look at it like we cover gardening stories. Somebody who's into gardening is going to enjoy cooking from their garden. They're also going to enjoy art probably, and they're going to probably enjoy music while they're gardening. It goes into this whole...
And then they're going to travel to see other gardens, botanical gardens.
And birds. They're going to like birds and nature. So
Exactly.
it's all connected. So this whole thing is about, I love what you're saying about this because that's who we are, is the blend. A big blend is
Yep.
life. Don't limit yourself. And I see that people kind of go towards these trends and things like that instead of using your full vision. And if
I
doctors
think
did it,
so.
going to the medical, if doctors
Right.
did it, we'd be screwed. You know what
Well,
I mean? If they
yes,
didn't look at
exactly.
everything.
Exactly. But that's really a good point. And I think that, so many people say, well, I just want to write about food. That's fine. I mean, if that's your thing, I write about food too, but guess what? I write about food in my destination stories. I can write about food when I write my stories about Europe for Europe Up Close magazine. I can write about coffee, about wine, about numerous different types of things. And by staying that way, you can do inspirational writing. I teach about travel writing, things like this. The great part about this is when people say, well, I'm not getting stories published. And I'm like, well, okay, first of all, there's that whole adage, again, what I said before. Are you loving what you do? And are you really writing a good story? Because if you've got to attract the editor, because if the editor loves it, the readers are going to love it because they know the voice of their publication. And I think that another big thing to this is that, again, if you limit yourself, then you sort of say, I want to go back to one thing. People said to me in the very beginning, and this was the worst advice I ever heard people say, you have to have a niche. I'm like, why? Because I don't know I don't know. I mean, I travel, but so I just took that whole notion and said, no, that's not going to happen for me.
Right.
I can't pick,
Right. But I want to also touch on, do you, you have your site, okay, what's in your suitcase.com, that you also have to build your own professional portfolio to get published, right? So when you go to an editor, you have to have your expert platform built up as well.
So what my website is actually, it's not a blog, and I'm in the process of revamping it right now. But it holds my published articles, because the reason for that is that if I pitch a story, typically I will put a couple links in the story or in my pitch, just to kind of let them know about what I've written for in the past. It may be similar to something they might be interested in their own magazine. But the other thing is that they can go to my site and they can see the different genres that I've written for. And so it really sort of, more than anything, it houses my stories. I'm not saying I never would blog, but right now I'm so busy. Honestly, I would not have time to be doing my own writing. And then there's that other side of it that you have to then worry about all the SEOs and all the wording and everything else. And honestly and truly, ladies, I just like to write the story, and I like to send it off to my editor with my photos and let them figure out all that stuff, because it's just not my thing. And it's like I had to do too much math over the course of the years when I was a nurse, and it's like, I'm kind of done with that now.
Yeah, the SEO is always changing, but I think it's important to have a website, and that's something, even when we started our magazine, the internet was there, but Google wasn't there. We had those big giant Earthlink books, and we were trying to teach everybody, like, okay, if you're getting a website built, and people paid exorbitant amounts back then, you should at least let people know. Remember, Nancy, they didn't have it on their business cards.
Business cards or anything.
Yeah, and then they would do it, and you'd hope someone would find you through Earthlink, or I don't know, those weird. Remember those old chat forums, and then people had to like pick each other out, but eventually, but that was the beginning of it all. MySpace, all of that, and it was like, here's your portfolio, and it's so much more effective, especially now online, than it is trying to print the whole world out. Remember back in the day, like a portfolio you'd have to have like you'd almost hand somebody a briefcase of what you've done in your life. Now it's easier, and I think that's important now with the internet, that we can showcase. You can have your own media kit as such, right? When you pitch people that, here, look, this is where I'm at, and you've taken those steps to be professional.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And and it's great because too, a lot of the tourism boards tell me they just Google me. I mean, besides
Mm-hmm.
that, they just Google and they could see, Google someone's name. And I tell writers this all the time, by the way. Put your name in the internet and see what comes up, because that's what tourism boards and PR reps are going to see,
Yep.
or even editors when they're looking for you. So yes, you
Exactly.
can make it easier if you have a site, but you certainly want to have that presence, so that they can take a look and see, and then it's going to bring up all the current things that maybe you haven't downloaded yet to your site, but they're going to be able to see everything you've written. They can just by doing that. So I
And
totally agree with you. I think you do. I think you definitely do need to have a website.
And that's important also. And every time you update your website, it comes up on Google. It helps. But it's important to be published consistently. And if you're not
Yeah.
being consistent and being published and you type your name in online, well, there you go. You're not coming up. You know what I mean?
That's
Maybe
right.
one thing you did 2 years ago, and that's not going to impress a reader. It's not going to impress someone that could publish you. It's not going to, you have to, I think, whether you're doing this part time, because there's a lot of bloggers out there, fantastic ones, travel writers. Some are just getting started, not even looking at being, paid yet. They're getting their platform set up, I say. But if you're not doing something consistent, then I think you're in trouble.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
you have
and
to.
and it's going to hurt you with the tourism boards if you're wanting to really go out there and you want to be competitive for press trips and those wonderful things that we all love to do. We all love these destinations to host us in exchange for published articles, and they have to see that you're out there doing it in order to invite you because it's a quid pro quo.
Mm. And speaking of, when there's this relationship, and listeners listening in that are not writers but interested in travel and tourism, this is truly what happens. Travel writers have to go somewhere to be able to write about it, and that's who you want. Like we were talking about this the other day on an interview, right, Nancy, about someone going to a
Mhm.
zoo to paint a lion and then trying to put the
Mhm.
lion in the wild as an artist. It doesn't work. You need to go out and do it. You cannot, you can't scrape the internet to write a travel story. It just doesn't. It sucks, in a word.
Well, it's not
But when
ethical.
it's not ethical. Exactly. There's no integrity to it.
But it
So you go
shows.
to a place, and and destinations rely on these travel writers. It's more important than anything that someone can come in and get the gist of the reality of it. And I think this is an important relationship, and it's important for travelers to have the destination be open to the travel writer, and vice versa. Don't you think?
I agree because we are their eyes and ears. I mean,
Mhm.
when I go to a destination and I write a story and that story gets published, and I'll just take this one for example because I was really excited. I had a very exciting thing happen to me yesterday. Is that I write for a publication called Travel Pulse, and it's owned by MSN. And Travel Pulse has like 4.5 million readers, so that's exciting
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people that are going to maybe read about an article about whether it's San Diego or Laguna Beach or St. Augustine or one of the other destinations, wonderful destinations, or Mexico or, Hawaii. Well, the thing about it is that they're reading this article and exciting. My editor said to me, "Oh my gosh, do you know that you hit the front page of MSN?"
Mhm.
So my article on Napa Valley hits that front page. So there's all these people that are not only, reading it from the Travel Pulse site, from the travel side of the house, but from the MSN side of the house. And it was about the hidden gems of Napa Valley. It's like we know Napa is, it's gotten more commercialized as a winery region, but there's some beautiful, wonderful family-owned wineries there that are very special. And so that's important because I was there, I visited the wineries, I talked to the winemakers, I wrote the story, I stayed in this really awesome, bed and breakfast and things like this. And so readers can read that
Mhm.
and say, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful." And I had a couple of people actually say, "I'm planning a trip to Napa. Thank you for this because now I kind of know where to go, and these sound fantastic." So yes, we are their eyes and ears, and we plant seeds for people because we want them to be able to go to that destination and we want them to be able to really have fun when they go there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's really important. And you get, like you're saying, there's the typical travel guide, and I'm not knocking any of that because sometimes you go to a place and you really want to hit those main spots because it's the once in a lifetime trip. But I think
Sure.
now travelers, there's it really isn't. I don't even think it goes according to age anymore. Because I look at baby boomers and millennials at the same time. They're like, we want a real experience. I think that's really what we're at now. We're done with the typical. We want real, authentic, unique experiences. I don't know if Instagram did it where everybody's trying to one up each other on a selfie, but people really want an authentic experience. I know I do. I don't want,
Uh-huh.
you know, the same bread pudding every night that everybody's been talking about. I want something unique and different that's attached to that destination. And I think that's important that travel writers get out there and do that. And I'm seeing it more from the destinations themselves. I even see tour companies are, when they're taking groups out, the groups are demanding, we don't want the same old anymore. Do you mind? Can we actually see something unique and different?
Well,
They want the
there's a
small
thing.
places.
There's the surface travel and there's the real travel, and
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that's what you're talking about. The surface travel is what everybody does because they're on a 2 week vacation or maybe less, and they're on a budget, and they do the things you're supposedly not supposed to miss. And then there's real travel where, yeah, you shouldn't miss the great things that should not be missed, but you have to
Mm.
look deeper. You have to look
Mhm.
deeper than just, oh, let's snap a photo with your cell phone and move on. Um, yeah, there's real travel and there's surface travel. There's a big
Mm.
difference.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep, I agree. I agree, and I also think that what we do, and what we have the power of the pen, is that we as writers can find what I call the story within the story. It's not just a snapshot of a restaurant, or it's a snapshot of a museum or of an artist or something like that. There's a deeper story to it. And those are also things that editors really like as well. And so, because we're looking for more than just the surface. We're not just scratching the surface. We're kind of finding those little jewels that kind of stand out and say, "Hey, nobody knew about this." No
Yeah.
one. Yeah, and I think you're both absolutely spot on that. That's what I think. Travelers are really looking for much more authentic experiences these days.
Mhm.
For sure.
And I think sometimes I know when we go to destinations and we travel full time and we tend to go to a lot of smaller communities that are only now starting to look at tourism because a lot of times places have to because it is one of the most sustainable industries if you approach it in that way. If you look
Yeah.
at it being as a responsible, if you're looking at bird watching and history and nature and art and things like that, and it can be very sustainable versus, hey, here comes a big company. I'm moving in, and then I'm going to disrupt everything. You're going to have to build 10,000, 20,000 houses. We're going to cause traffic jams, and then, hey, I've decided to move after 5, 10 years. You know what I mean? Tourism, if it's done right, is
Good point.
sustainable for all sizes. And so a lot of
Mhm.
times we go into places, and we just, I don't know, it just happens. Then we end up in places we never thought we were going to be, and they are like starting to eyeball this world of tourism, and they're not quite set up yet. But what we're looking at, and we even go like places, Santa Fe, been doing the world of tourism since the 1800s, and started it. Quite frankly, everyone will hear that in our next segment. But um, when you look at it, people in their own communities forget about the jewels that they have and the gems and jewels because they grew up with it. And so a lot of times we hear, man, you made me look at my community differently. And I mean, it's like I'm not kidding, just about every place we go to. And every time I hear that, I went, okay, we did our job then. We remind communities
I
and the
love that.
residents what they actually have in their town because I think sometimes they've been wearing the same jacket for so long that it's become very, very comfortable and they're not realizing that you can add another color to that jacket. You know what I mean? It's
Well, how many times have you heard this? And I know you both have with all the traveling you do. I've heard this so many times in places. I've lived in this town my whole life, and I never knew about this place. So,
Oh yeah.
exactly.
and
That's how we
I
started
know,
the
and it's
magazine, or Nancy did. That's
Yes.
exactly Nancy, right? South Africa. That's how she
Right.
started the first
In
magazine for us.
Africa, and a person said to me, "There's nothing to do." I'm like, "You're in Africa. What do you mean? What are you talking about? There's nothing to do." Oh my gosh. And then 20 minutes from the place where that happened, I found this huge globe, a sculpture, the globe of the world, and where the Voortrekkers settled South Africa in this farmland because I got lost. It's my hobby. And nobody knew
I
it was
love it.
there. Somebody built this huge 50-foot, 40-foot, whatever it was,
It was
sculpture,
massive.
and it was massive. And when I went back to the town and went, "Wait, what's that?" And nobody knew what I was talking about. Like, dude, you gotta get out.
And this was a teeny town, maybe 300 people lived in it. No
Yeah,
kidding.
Yeah.
it was like you have to get out. I
Well,
mean, you
and
gotta
never
go
tell a
see.
writer there's nothing to do, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
Exactly.
what?
Because we'll find it.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh! In the whole continent, there's nothing to do. Right.
That's exactly it. This is so funny. So, did you travel as a kid, Noreen?
Yes, I did. I was really lucky. I did travel. When I was a child, my family loved to travel. And then, of all things, I married a naval officer. And
Ah, there you
we
go.
traveled all over. We lived all
Mm,
over. My
cool.
favorite place was Italy. So we lived in
Oh,
Italy for about 3.5 years, and that was phenomenal. So talk about learning the culture there and the language and the food and the coffee and everything else like this. So I was bit by a travel bug at childhood, and that's why this is just perfect for me. And that's what I tell people: do what you love. I mean, if you really love doing things like this, write about it. I mean, if you love to write, you love to travel. It's just to me, it's like a marriage made in heaven. But yep, I've always loved to travel.
Now, what about the writing part of it? Because you can travel around and say, okay, I'm going to write, I'm going to blog, I'm going to photograph. And it's interesting because of, a gazillion people saying that they are writers or photographers. And I'm like, okay, okay, let's take it up a notch. And there's a gazillion that are equally as good as there are some that just like really, we need to go a little bit more than the setting on your phone. Phones are great, but you cannot say you're a photographer to me in my eyes, and maybe I'm wrong, but if you're
uh
always on the
oh.
auto on your phone, you're not a photographer. That's just my opinion. Opinion. I know I'm going to
Well,
get nailed by it later, but
you're
there's
probably going to get nailed by it. But here's what I'll save you on this. Okay, I have magazines, publications that I write for, especially if it's a print magazine. Let's take, for example, Edible San Diego magazine.
mm,
They will not take cell phone photos. They will
Oh
not.
gosh, I wonder why.
So, okay, so if you are going to write for certain publications, and you think you're going to snap a bunch of photos with your cell phone, you may find yourself in a situation where they say these photos are not good enough, or they might even have it in their writer guidelines. So the whole point to this is
oh,
it's a really
see,
good idea. Just
Hmm.
get a good camera if you're going to do this, because sure, you can snap those sudden things with your cell phone, pull it out of your pocket and things like this. But if you're really going to be out there and you're really going to call yourself a professional, get a good camera.
But
yeah,
but
and I
okay.
think there's a social media. You can do it for social media. That's where I see the cell phone, and I know photographers who take brilliant photos on their cell phones, and have actually done whole photo shoots and done exhibits. So I'm not knocking it, but there
Yeah.
is you can't go that you. I'm just there's unless you have this innate amazing quality, there is a
Mm.
difference. Nancy, I know you do the production side and look at
Okay.
the photos
Okay. Here's
far
the
closer
deal.
than I
Here's the
do,
deal.
and this is why I
Cameras.
have to give her wine.
Okay. No, cameras weigh a little bit more, but in a lot of the cell phones today, the cameras that are within that, okay, they have their limitations, but they're excellent cameras. It's really not about the camera, it's about the user.
Mhm.
And it's about, can you hold a cell phone as steady as you can a camera that has more weight? Okay. And then of course camera, if you have different lenses and you're into that and you got telephoto lenses, that's a different thing. But
Mhm.
most of the time what's wrong with cell phone photos is the person using the cell phone uses it like a phone, and their arms are out there and they're waving around and they can't hold it steady because it's too light, and their elbows are out. We call it bingo wings or chicken wings.
You did not just
And
say
That's
that.
right.
I just did. It's a and
No, Nancy, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's
it's
exactly what
yes.
they called it when I took my very first photography course. They called it chicken wings.
See,
They kind of that's exactly what they called it.
yeah, and that's it. So if you put your elbows into your side
Mhm.
and then hold the cell phone, the camera is it's within there. Two limitations, maybe not like telephoto if you're going to do animals and stuff like that. That's different. But if you're taking a scenery shot, okay, and you put your arms, your elbows into your sides, you can hold the cell phone a lot steadier. However,
Mhm.
having said that, that does not make you a
Yeah.
photographer, artist kind of person with understanding color,
Light
space, format,
composition.
and lighting and composition. That takes practice.
Right. Right.
That takes practice.
So you went to
Right.
photography courses, so that's something we should touch on. Is the education. I mean, this whole thing for you, Noreen, you went to a class, you went a workshop. So is education a part of your career is to keep up on all these things that I mean everything keeps changing, but to
Yes.
continue and learning the craft of writing, not just the craft of traveling, because there's yeah we take peanuts and wine with us, but there's more to you have to learn how to write too, you know.
I agree, and the thing is, I'm always upping my game, and so every year I either go to a travel writing seminar or I do something every year. All the years I was a nurse, and nurses, doctors, teachers, those of us in the field who have licenses, for example, every year
Right.
we had to do something called we had to do
Mm.
continuing education units.
Right.
So I took that thought process and just kind of transferred it over
Mhm.
into this
Yep.
travel writing. And the first thing I did is after I took the travel writing, when I went to the travel writing program, then I signed up for a photography course here in San Diego. There was a local photographer that someone had referred me to, and I signed up for that. And I know for a lot of people, they say, okay, so that means I have to go to school, I have to take courses. It depends how good you want to be. I mean, for me,
Yes.
I
Exactly.
really
Right.
wanted to be better photographer. Every year I write, I want to be better than I was the year before. And so
Right.
there are techniques that to me, if you are really serious about doing this as a full-time career, getting published, having the magazines pay you for your photos, then go out there and do it the right way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with blogging, okay? There's a lot of bloggers out there, there's a lot of writers out there and things like this. But if you are going to do it, make sure that you either have a good basis, know what you're doing, pay attention to your work, because one thing is that for people who self-publish, we know there is no gatekeeper. You don't have an editor. It's whatever you put on there. And
I
it is
love that.
one of those things that I have seen. I mean, the classic case to me was the worst thing in the world. I was on a press trip, and one of the people from the press trip had self-published an article on her own site, and she misspelled the name of the town. I'm not kidding.
Nancy and I are giggling right now because when I said I love this, when you say I don't love it, because this is the same thing. We interview a number of travel writers, bloggers,
Oh
and
boy.
they're awesome. But and also there's the world of
Mhm.
self-publishing books, and there's a difference between an article and a book. And in the fact that like that's a whole book, and like how many trees got killed for your unedited piece of work because your ego
Oh,
got in the way.
well.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like you didn't get an editor because you didn't want to change this and that. That's the thing. Like we I mean, here things we have to like. I mean, as editing and public, proofreading, things get duked out. It's like you're going to put
Well,
the best piece out. Your ego does
no,
not allow. It's not
okay.
allowed. But self-publishing, it could be that you totally miss it. You've got. You're saying the gatekeeper part of it is true, and then there's the ego part that goes into articles and books and even self-publishing music.
Can
It's an interesting world when you do not have the gatekeeper. You need the
can
gatekeeper.
I can
Everyone
I
does.
just say? Can I just say?
She's a gatekeeper, by the way.
Okay, now can I just say
Good.
there's such a thing as a spell check. It's very
Yeah.
simple. It's on your computer when you write an email. It's on your computer when you go into Word. It's on your computer whenever you write something. Please click on it and use it. That's not going to help all your grammatical
No,
errors
not at all.
and weird sentences, but at least it shows you care. So when we
Mhm.
get
And
articles with spelling errors, the first thing that goes through my mind is you don't care because you didn't take the time to do what we didn't have like in grade school. When I was in class, I didn't have some little thing to check and say, "Oh, you misspelled that." You know,
Mm.
we had to learn
mhm.
and memorize and learn how to spell. Right now, you have spell checks, people, and why don't you use them? I don't get it.
Yep.
I have to say, I'm always like,
We're on
what?
a rant.
No, because
Right.
it's true if you care. And
Well,
that's always the
because
first
you,
thing. The first thing
yes,
when we travel is we can tell who cares and who doesn't. It's
Yeah,
easy.
even by
mhm,
a
I don't care if it's
destination's
a
website.
hotel, restaurant, a writer, a destination. You can tell right away who cares and who doesn't. And
By
I
the
vote
well,
for
menu.
and
the
I
people
think,
who care.
Go
and I
ahead.
think
Sorry, we're on a rant.
it's all part of what I said in the beginning. Do it well. Establish a pattern of excellence. If you're not
Ooh.
going to do that, then maybe you're not in the right profession. I mean, or maybe you're because sloppy work doesn't get published by editors.
Uh-uh.
Sloppy work is
Uh-uh.
not going to pay you $500 an article. Sloppy work is going to make that editor, if you pitch something to an editor and they see spelling errors in it, do you think they really want you to write an article for them that they have to
Mm.
edit and they have to
No.
work through? So that's what I tell people: be proud of what you do. This is your give it your best work. That's how you get published. That's how you get paid for your work. That's how you attract tourism boards that want to host you to
Yep.
come to their destination because they've seen what you've written. You know, people go out there and try to make this so hard. And honestly, what it comes down to, and I'm so in agreement with you guys on this, is that you have to really care about what you do and you really have to do a good job with it. Ultimately,
It's
it comes down
you
to
said
that.
excellence. That's what the show is about. Tourism excellence, right? It's excellence. And no, it doesn't mean that we're all perfect, but it is
Right? No.
about caring. It is that caring thing. It's like when you go in a restaurant and it's always the menu for some reason. I don't know what it is, but menus. It's like, okay, you can't spell your own menu like 10 times on one thing. Like, I'm worried. And then if the food's good, you go, okay, like, that's cool. The food's
They can
good.
cook, but
Don't
they
look at the
can't
menu.
spell.
But it makes you worry. Like, the attention to detail is key. That is excellence, is attention to detail because you care about the
It's also
details.
caring. It's also
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
caring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
you
I
love
don't
this.
pay
I
attention
agree.
to details, yeah, then you don't care.
I
It,
wanted
it's
to just touch
it's.
on
I was
I
just
want
going
to
to
touch
say
on
it's
one
good to have
thing.
great ideas, but you can have great ideas, but if you're going to put them into action, you got to know the details. You got to care.
Exactly. You've got to. I
Hmm.
wanted to ask you, Noreen, before you go,
Hmm.
that being part of like organizations like International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, we say IFTWA, and all these kinds
Hmm.
of travel writing, because I know that you keep on the education. You always want to be better, better, like you were talking about on the show today. Is that part of expanding your knowledge is or networking, being part of organizations like IFTWA?
Oh, yes. Networking is huge. The other part of this that I'm so glad you brought that up. The other part of this is that, you can't be an island. I mean, one of the things that I learned about travel writing is that a lot of times you're by yourself, right? You're in your office, you're writing the articles, you're doing all this stuff, you're editing your photos, things like this. But the bottom line to it is that I have a saying that that none of us knows everything, but each of us knows something, and together we all know so much more.
Mm.
And that is exactly what I do with the networking part of it, is that by joining organizations, by being out there, putting yourself out there, asking people, sharing information, all of this, the information that we get is like exponential, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And I love going on press trips for that reason, because you can kind of mind meld with people, and they know something I didn't know, and I know something they didn't know. But being part of organizations is huge. I'm also a member of my San Diego press club here in San Diego, also a member of the International Travel-Writers and Photographers Alliance. And so there, and with my local Travel Massive chapter. So I honestly think that being out there and interworking with other professionals in the field is so important. You can't be by yourself. You can't. No man is an island.
And how much, it's interesting because I think about your background of being in, nursing in the medical field, caring. The medical world is always changing, and caring and working together for a patient is crucial, right? And then I also think about, your husband's career and, traveling the world and being part of the military service. They've learned that teamwork. You cannot, fight a battle or create anything and help make changes in a country without teamwork. So do you think all of that is added to your knowledge now of continuing the quest for excellence in travel writing?
Well, I'm sure it has. I mean, I think that everything that we do in life is one of those things where we think about all the things that we don't like to make mistakes. Obviously, we don't like to, we don't want to have to deal with those pitfalls, but they all teach us something along the way. And so I think that one of the whole points to this is the reason that people say, well, I never broke into travel writing because I don't have a journalism degree. Well, obviously, I don't have a journalism degree. So what it tells people is I have seen so many successful people who have transitioned from teaching, nursing. I have friends who are lawyers that are now becoming full-time travel writers. There are people that are out there that are taking their, prior professions, even if it was, as an IT specialist, or, if it was, even someone who worked, like in jewelry stores or managing or things like this. So the key to the whole thing is being able to take all those things that you learned and kind of just rewiring your brain a little bit, because you have a little bit of a different profession. But the organizational skills are there. The excellent skills are there. That whole idea that Nancy said about caring enough and things like this. So it's just a different profession, but all of those factors that made you good at what you did before can make you good at what you're doing now. So
I love that.
That whole adage of, well, you can't write if you don't have a journalism degree. I had someone tell me that early on one of my early press trips. She says, you're never going to make it in this field without a journalism degree. And I said, watch me. I mean, watch me.
No.
Listen,
but sometimes
they want a good story.
That's
sometimes it can ruin.
Checks. That's before Grammarly and spell checks and things like that. When you're talking about creative things like, okay, you have to have an art degree to be an artist. No, you don't.
Well,
it might help you and open other doors, but do you have to have an art degree to be an artist? No. Do you have to have a writer's degree, journalism degree to be a writer? No. However, I would like my doctor to have a medical degree. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I
think it's great to have those things. And I think if you're going to be a journalist covering the news and understanding the political fields and there's a difference, man. We're talking about travel writing, getting out there. I think Anthony Bourdain's one of the most perfect examples. He was a chef who was a naughty nunu, and he traveled the world. He had the best job. So sad about his end of life, but he really did it. He really did it, though. He inspired us all to be exactly who we are and not take. He really, when it comes to excellence, he stood in that and said, "This is who I am. I'm not going to, phony it." He had integrity
Mhm.
all the way, and I think that was a very, and maybe, I mean, maybe that was the hard thing at the end. I'm not going to get into that, but he really did justice to the places he went, the people. He really did, and I think that was exactly it. He was a chef, and he was able to take that skill and move it. And you said the word organizational skills. I think that is
Mm,
crucial. Travel writers,
that's very
the
crucial.
organizational skills are crucial,
Mm,
and you have to be able to be organized so that when everything goes to hell, you can pick it back up and move and change and be flexible immediately. Because
mhm.
that's exactly what happens when you travel. You think this is what's going to happen, and none of it really does happen that way at
Right.
all. So that
Very well
organizational
said.
skills,
Yes.
yeah, and then being able to be organized to actually deliver the goods. That's something I see a lot of times travel writers get out there and then never produce. That's
Mhm.
something important. You can't go out.
Well, you can't do that because let me tell you something. The one thing is I have a lot of PR reps that are friends of mine. That you
Yeah.
write a good story, they get to know you, they invite you back, they want to do this, they invite they introduce you to another tourism rep from another industry. So you really again you really want to establish that excellence. You really do want to do that. You never
Mm.
ever ever want to take perks and then not deliver because it's a believe it or not, it's a small world out there.
Yes.
Mhm.
And if you do and you do not deliver, they
Oh,
do
you're
talk.
blackballed.
And yes, and you just don't want that. You don't want people doing that. But I've known lots and lots of writers out there doing it. And I've even had, because I run a private writers group as well. 450 almost 450 members for
Wow.
aspiring writers and things. And one of the things that I tell people is don't ever come to me and tell me that you took perks and promised a story and then didn't
And didn't
deliver
do
it
it.
because
No.
if
Exactly.
you
That's
don't do
wrong.
that, you're going to be on your own. That is integrity, and you cannot do that. You must know
Mhm.
that you are going to deliver before you take that. I mean, that's just all part of the integrity, and it's all part
And it's
of
in any career, and and it ruins it
yes,
for the rest of us as well
Yes,
because
yes,
big time.
we've been into communities wanting to do things, and they're like, well, somebody came through, blew through town, and did this and this and this,
Mhm.
and so especially I'm talking about those up and coming towns. People blow through, do this thing, and then leave them high and dry, and you
Mhm.
yep,
don't know what's going on in that community. You could be that like last, resort of, hey, we really need to do this. We've been into towns that have been devastated by fires and hurricanes and all kinds of things, and you go in and you better do your thing and try not to take what you don't need. You know what I mean? It's like it's a very interesting thing, but it's a relationship that is built between you and that community and your hosts and the people who don't do it. I think it's move on it. Don't sit on it, and the longer you sit on it, the worse the story is going to be. You can't.
Well, yeah,
You got
'cause
to
you
move on it.
forget.
You
You
forget the
forget.
yes. You know
feeling, the
what? Yes,
emotion.
yep.
Yeah, move
Yeah,
on it. Get on
yeah,
it.
I agree. But I think it all goes
Mhm.
back, Nancy, to what you were saying, and I love that about the caring part of it. I mean, if you care enough about
Mhm.
that, you care enough about those people that bent over backwards to host you, then do what you're supposed to be doing. And that really comes down to what we all said that a lot of this conversation was about is excellence, is that you just
Mm.
really have to do that. And so when people say to me, well, I'm struggling and I don't do this and I don't understand, how do you have 400 and some published articles? And I think to myself, I just told you. I mean, it's like, it really ultimately comes down to just do a good job. Do what you
Due
promise. Well,
diligence.
deliver what you say you're going to. Give them a really top-notch story. People are going to love you for it. And it makes, at the end of the day, you go to bed and you sleep well and you say, I have a good life.
Mm.
I like that.
Well,
I like
there's
that.
such a thing as due diligence. Do your part. Do
Yeah,
your part.
we all need to do that.
Don't
We
try
all
to
need to
put
do
one
that.
over. Yeah,
Exactly.
just do your part. Do what you said you're going to do. Do it on time and do it well.
And look at what's in your suitcase. Everybody, that is Noreen's website. Go check it out. What's in your
I'm not telling what's
suitcase.com.
in mine.
I know. Follow her on Twitter, Noreen Writer, and Facebook as well, Instagram. And such a pleasure having you on the show. I know we went overtime because we got all rantified there a little bit. We got a little
We sure
passionate
did.
there. Well, but it's part of, if you're passionate, you're passionate, and when things are, when it people deliver. Just saying. And there's a lot of awesome writers out there. You're one of them, Noreen. So awesome to have you on the show. I also want to thank the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association for being part of this and introducing us to people like Noreen and other amazing travel writers. Their conference is coming up in Santa Fe. We're going to have a segment coming up right now with Ed Pulsifer on the La Fonda in Santa Fe Plaza. It's amazing. So I hope you do
Cool.
get there, Noreen. I know you're trying to work that out in your schedule. The conference, the annual conference, is November 11th through 13th, 2019. So check it out at ifwtwa.org. But Noreen, we have a song for you. We love to play music for our
Okay.
guests,
And
and
listen,
this is
thank
called.
you so much. I had so much fun, ladies. Oh my gosh.
I know, and we promise to behave and not rant so much next time, but not really.
Not really.
Not really. That's just who we are. When you're passionate, you're passionate. But your song is called Traveler, and it's from one of our favorite bands, the Walkabout Band. They're based between New York and Australia, and this is off of their first album. Title album is Walkabout, because that's their band name. So here it is, Traveler. Thanks so much for joining us.